The songs, the stories, the animation, Disney movies have a lot to love, and are enjoyed by millions of children all over the world. But a whole film can completely change when the movie is paused. Kids may look at beloved Disney characters in a whole new light after seeing several paused scenes that can be easily misinterpreted at such a young age. Here is Screen Rant's list of 10 paused Disney moments that kids can misinterpret. Check out our awesome video, but before you do that, click the subscribe button. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of any new content.
Heard your princess was a sight lovely to see.
The Genie and the Sultan. Aladdin is known for the epic love story between the title character and the forbidden princess, Jasmine. Even though they may play the romantic leads in the film, several other couple combinations are possible. Some fans may prefer the dark horse couple of Jafar and Jasmine. Some may want to see Aladdin end up with another girl from the streets of Agrabah. And then there's the paused scene that showcased the odd pairing of the Genie and the Sultan. Even as the film pushed the love story of Aladdin and Jasmine into our faces, it's hard not to ignore several of the other characters and their potential for love. With some poorly placed body positions, it appeared that the Genie was using his powers for a little more than just helping Aladdin snag his girl. Not only was the Genie in a dominant pose over the Sultan, but he was dressed just like him. What kind of love fantasy is that? Anyone that has seen Aladdin knows that the Sultan is a pretty odd character. It wouldn't be that surprising to see him open to a relationship with a magical genie just to see where things could go. The look on his face was full of shock and surprise, but there was clearly a little intrigue there too. Obviously, the movie series didn't take this moment any further, but there's probably some fan fiction out there that showcases what life would be like in Agrabah with the Genie and the Sultan ruling the roost together.
No weaknesses whatsoever.
An exhausted Hercules. Hercules may be the god of strength, but apparently every god has his limits. In the 1997 animated hit Hercules, he spent a good portion of the movie trying to get the attention of the confident and strong-willed Meg, despite the growing presence of the evil Hades. Throughout the animated film, Hercules does battle with giant monsters, three-headed hydras, and even a titanic cyclops. Between those battles, it appeared as if Hercules had a little downtime to spend with Meg. The two characters playfully flirted with each other throughout the film, but there was barely a kiss or romantic gesture seen on the screen. In this very suggestive screenshot, Hercules and Meg look both mentally and physically exhausted. And anyone that sees this paused moment will think that the exhaustion is just from battling monsters. The look on Meg alone is enough to give it all away. Her hair is a mess, she appears quite sweaty, and seems completely out of breath as she clings onto her Herculean god. Hercules himself can't keep his cool either. The charming god of strength looks completely out of his element, with a dazed look on his face. At least his hair is still in good shape. This all explains why Hercules chose to stay on Earth rather than live out the rest of his life as a god amongst the clouds. Good choice, Herc.
Sleep.
A Jungle Book psychosis. The story of Mowgli and his jungle adventures has been an odd one that no one really considered. An orangutan king, talking animals, a dancing bear? The animated Jungle Book and the recent live-action remake may be considered Disney classics, but has anyone actually considered what Mowgli's true story is?
Don't worry about me.
This young, abandoned boy just happened to befriend a bunch of wild animals and sing musical numbers with them? There's something fishy about that, and a few paused moments can showcase exactly how suspicious the whole story is. During a paused moment of the animated Jungle Book, we see a close-up shot of the Black Panther, Bagheera. Bagheera played the role of a loyal best friend and mentor to Mowgli, despite the predatory nature of these animals in real life. The close-up shot of Bagheera showcases the panther with 6 eyes instead of 2. Was this a mistake? Or was it a slight revelation that Mowgli's whole jungle adventure was all just a crazy trip on some bad hallucinogens that Mowgli mistook for survival food? Using this theory, the whole story kinda starts to make sense. It would give Mowgli the ability to talk to multiple animals, and allows you to enjoy the movie more. Knowing that it's all a psychedelic dream will eliminate any of the questions that you previously had. While Mowgli's visions are typically clear, the six-eyed Bagheera showcased how bad they could actually get.
What's the matter with his ears? I don't see nothing wrong with him.
Timothy Q. Mouse. Training an elephant to fly can be exhausting. Just ask Timothy Q. Mouse, one of the lead characters in the animated classic Dumbo. Timothy is inspired by Dumbo and wants to help the young elephant free his mother from captivity. I guess Timothy wasn't too inspired, because shortly in the film he jumps into a vat of champagne and gets really bubbly. The frozen screenshot of Timothy Q. Mouse that has spread around the internet is not something made to look like he's under the influence. The character really was in the movie. In the scene before this shot, a group of clowns are shown pouring champagne into the large barrel. Made in 1941, Disney films were more open to showcasing the use of alcohol or smoking by various characters. Not only did Timothy Mouse get drunk with Dumbo, but the pair went on a binge, saw visions of pink elephants, and eventually blacked out until they woke up in a treetop the next morning. Now that's a party. This screenshot of Timothy Mouse captures it all, showing a beloved Disney character under the influence and ready to party with all the other circus animals. Not only is he wasted, but he's stumbling around, burping bubbles, and looking about as buzzed as a mouse could get. I guess that's why Mickey got all the fame. Timothy was just too drunk to care. As the live-action remake of Dumbo moves forward, time will only tell if the same scene will be used again with modern audiences. What do you think? Would something like this fly in today's day and age at Disney? Pinocchio. In the 1940 animated film Pinocchio, the title character was a lively wooden puppet that had dreams of one day becoming a real boy. After a visit by a magical fairy, he learned exactly how he could do this. It included the ability to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. While these were important for the character's journey, he may have had a few side stops along the way. Pinocchio may be a puppet made of wood, but from the looks of a specific shot, it looked like that wasn't stopping him from enjoying some suspicious plants in his downtime. The magical fairy never mentioned anything about smoking, and that's exactly what it looks like Pinocchio is doing in the shot. I guess Geppetto could not only make puppets, but he was probably skilled at making other handy devices. The only thing left to figure out from this suspicious screenshot is who exactly Pinocchio got the stuff from. Jiminy Cricket seems to have some good resources, but my money is on the suspicious duo of Honest John the Fox and Gideon the Cat. Those two seem to know the back streets of Pinocchio's village, and spent a good portion of the film trying to trick the puppet. Either way, if Pinocchio did end up enjoying some illicit contraband, doing that wouldn't necessarily go against the fairy's wishes. He could still enjoy it all while still being brave, truthful, and unselfish.
Well, oh, the prince. I haven't met the prince.
The prince?
Prince Charming's Second Life. The world of Disney is filled with a lot of inspiring and great love stories. There's Sleeping Beauty and Prince Philip, there's Simba and Nala, there's Anna and Kristoff. Even though Cinderella is a classic Disney animated film, the love story does not live up to some of the other epics. Most of this blame can be placed directly on Prince Charming. Boring and undeveloped, Prince Charming may seek a princess to lead the land with, but we don't get to know much about him other than his obsession with fancy glass dress shoes. Small hints throughout Cinderella may showcase that Prince Charming is not as charming as he's supposed to be. During this one specific shot, we get a glimpse of Charming during his big ball. Prince Charming not only looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, but his demeanor, outfit, and expression make it seem like he was seeking another prince rather than a princess. The white gloves, the lips that look like lipstick has been pressed against them, etc, etc. Maybe Disney was a little more progressive than they actually seemed back in the 1950s. His polite yawn may be an indicator of what's to come in the future after the happily ever after with Cinderella. Even a fairy godmother can't save this relationship. The 2014 Disney film Into the Woods took this premise a little further, turning Prince Charming into a full-fledged cheater. That seems about right, especially when looking at this screenshot again. Flynn's Problems. Flynn Rider is one of the main characters in Tangled and has always lived a life on the run. Sure, he was a petty thief, but there was clearly something more to his constant movements. Maybe it was just a medical condition all along. Multiple paused moments in the 2010 animated film showcase some odd looks on Flynn's face. Each of these could be easily interpreted as some type of medical issue for Flynn. Our guess? Irritable bowel syndrome. During the scene inside a pub, a paused moment shows a look of despair on Flynn's face. After getting tossed around the place, did his bowels kick in? That's certainly what it looks like. Even though his face looks like it was in a lot of pain, he does seem to have some sense of relief. Another scene in the film makes it look like his disease has come back to haunt him. With Rapunzel's hair wrapped around his neck, Flynn makes his strangest face in the film as his eyes bug out and his mouth shows some exasperation. He's clearly going through some type of bowel issues here. It's just too bad that Rapunzel doesn't have the time or the patience to let him get his business done. Children watching these scenes may have some ideas about Flynn and his journey deep into the forest. He unintentionally found Rapunzel, but maybe he was just looking for a quiet place to go to the bathroom all along.
Oh my.
Jane's botched BOTOX. When you live a life being raised by gorillas, you will lose touch with a lot of modern technology and society. In the 1999 film Tarzan, we watch the hero get raised by animals and live a simple life with just a loincloth around his body. Living deep in the jungle keeps him away from vehicles, clothes, modern food, and even the social media of the day. Eventually, Tarzan meets the woman that'll change his life forever. Jane introduced Tarzan to modern conveniences, including clothes, cooking tools, and weapons like guns. Apparently, Jane was also one of the first people to ever get Botox, and it didn't go so well. In a freeze frame where Tarzan carries Jane to safety, her hand swings up and nails Tarzan in the face. While Tarzan's face looks like a normal reaction to a slap, Jane's face becomes completely distorted. Her eyes look uneven, her cheeks are pointing in different directions, and it looks like her smile is frozen in place. All of these issues are typical signs of a botched Botox injection. While the time frame of the 1800s may make it seem far-fetched, Jane was traveling with some pretty sophisticated scientists and inventors. She could have been using some experimental version of the now popular cosmetic drug. It's no wonder that after spending weeks in the jungle with Tarzan, Jane's skin remains as flawless as ever.
I want to do something for her. But what?
Beast's eating disorder. Beauty and the Beast is a classic Disney tale, and the 1991 animated film is one of the few films to ever get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. The massive popularity of both the animated film and the live-action remake has put a lot of scrutiny on the story. It's easy to notice a lot of flaws, but one shot can showcase a whole undeveloped storyline that was never fully shown. In the shot, the Beast stuffs his face with platters of food, refusing to use forks and knives like a typical human. Not only does he eat messily, but he eats more than you can imagine. Just glancing at this frame alone will make you think that the Beast has an eating disorder. Exhibit A. The Beast was not always a beast. He was once a human. Not just any ordinary human, but a lavish prince that probably spent years attending formal dinners and taking etiquette classes. Just because he's transformed doesn't mean that he's lost his manners. Another big piece of evidence. More than half of the transformed people are there just to serve him food. There's dozens of plates, cooks, teacups, and kettles. A lavish meal is made every night, and before Belle arrived, it was just the Beast eating these meals. Sure, the screenshot of the Beast may look silly, but it could also be an indication of some type of binge-eating issue. Hopefully, children don't pick up on any of these issues and transfer it into their own lives.
So lonely.
Frozen fever. The massive success of the 2013 film Frozen led to a huge demand to see more content. Before Frozen 2 went into production, fans were treated with a short film entitled Frozen Fever. In the story, Elsa, Kristoff, Olaf, and other characters start to plan a huge birthday bash for Anna, until Elsa comes down with a cold. The sneezes from her cold produce little snowmen known as snowgies, but there is more than meets the eye when you take a look at a key shot from the film. A look at Elsa showcased her surrounded by a huge puff of smoke inside a small wooden structure. Elsa's not avoiding this smoke at all, but she actually waves her hands to inhale it. What exactly is this smoke, and how does it contribute to Elsa's powers? Does anyone else know about this secret shed? Not only would children be suspicious of this paused moment, but Anna is looking on suspiciously in the background. Anna may need to look out for what she's carrying though. That giant loaf of bread could end up being a huge craving for Elsa. Elsa lives a very stressful life as the Snow Queen. She must keep her kingdom at peace, manage her powers, and ensure that another ice disaster doesn't happen again. It would be reasonable that Elsa would seek a little relaxation and privacy. Too bad her nosy sister is there to ruin the real party.
So, we meet again, Buzz Lightyear, for the last time.
Toy Story 2. Toy Story captured a lot of our hearts when we first saw the relationship between Andy and his beloved toys, especially between him and Woody. It's hard not to fall in love with the Toy Story movies. They're enjoyed everywhere by people of all ages, for good reasons. Not only is the animation stellar, but you can't help but fall in love with the characters, and the stories are always entertaining. If you ever had a favorite toy as a child, then the films are even more nostalgic. The movies are some of Disney's best, and have had remarkable commercial success. Perhaps we'll see another in the future. There is one scene in particular that may come as a shock if you pause it at just the right moment. It's the one where Jessie is talking with Buzz, shaking him, and seems a little hysterical, possibly even drunk. If you do pause it at the right spot, you can see a very disturbing image of Jessie's eyes appearing to roll in the back of her head, all while Buzz is staring at her bewildered and possibly a little mortified, which is probably the best part of pausing the movie.
Please.
Frozen. Do you hear those bells? It's Princess Elsa's coronation day. Princess Anna hasn't arrived yet because she's off gallivanting on her own. Little did she know she would be meeting Prince Hans at the Southern Isles. Quite awkwardly, if we might add. You probably remember the scene. She and Hans's horse bump into each other. She steps in the bucket, then falls in a boat. Luckily for her, Hans's horse stops it with his hoof from falling in the water. Hans then steps in to help her out. Once he realizes she's a princess, he kindly bows, as does his horse. But remember, the horse is what is stopping the boat falling in the water. Once again, he stops it from falling in, but Hans is then thrust upon the princess. Pause it just when Hans falls on her, and yeah, it definitely looks like something naughty is happening. The PG rating in this case seems a little skeptical. Princess Anna is rather embarrassed throughout the ordeal and can barely keep it together. He is, however, the dreamiest guy she's ever laid eyes on. If only we could tell her at this point to just steer clear of this one, because he's bad news. Ratatouille. Ratatouille is a clever and cute Disney movie, one that will be sure to leave you hungry. A rat, the rodent you definitely don't want near a kitchen, loves to cook. Ingenious. Even more so is the fact he trains Linguini to master his cooking by using his hair. The head chef of the restaurant becomes quite impressed with Remy's cooking, thinking it's actually Linguini. Colette, the only female cook, is tasked with training Linguini. Reluctant at first, she must do what the head chef wants. Things start to heat up, literally, when Linguini starts to fall for her. Things get awkward when Linguini tries to muster up the courage to tell her a tiny rat is controlling every move. It doesn't go over very well, and if you pause it in just the right spot, you can see for yourself. Linguini starts to say, I have this tiny, little... He wants to say rat, but she stares down at his pants because she thinks he means pecker. Come on, Colette, get your head out of the gutter. Linguini ends up chickening out and telling her his secret, and despite her thinking he does have a small package, things seem to work out in the end. The Rescuers. If you've seen The Rescuers, I think we can all agree that Madame Medusa is one freaky looking woman. What's even worse is she's a terrible human being. She's like a combination of Miss Hannigan from Annie and Cruella de Vil. One word, scary. The entire movie she's manipulating a sweet, shy, innocent, but brave little girl named Penny to obtain a rare diamond, the Devil's Eye, from inside a cave. She uses Penny because she's the only one that can fit down there. Have no fear, the rescuers Bernard and Miss Bianca are on the case. They travel by albatross down to the Devil's Bayou, where Medusa and her incompetent lackey, Mr. Snoops, are in an attempt to rescue poor Penny. There is one scene in particular that is especially creepy. Medusa is removing her makeup and pulls off her fake eyelashes. Now, at first, it's hard to tell they're fake. It just looks like she's straight up ripping off her real ones. If you pause it, her eye becomes contorted and it's not a pretty sight to look at. She's sure to scare any children, and maybe some adults, who watch this movie.
Are there any aminos in here?
Lilo and Stitch. Created to cause chaos throughout the galaxy, Experiment 626, also known as Stitch, is quite the character Disney came up with. Standing at about 3 feet tall, while furry and cute like a koala, he's not one to be trifled with. Stitch is still a genetically engineered extraterrestrial with mischievous behavior. One reason LILO ends up adopting him. Mr. Bubbles, the man from Child Services, is no stranger to this creature's interesting behavior. When he comes to the door after finding out LILO's sister, Nani, lost her job, Stitch growls and throws a book at his face. He's probably lucky that's the only thing he does. Now, if you pause it perfectly, his sunglasses go flying, his mouth is wide open, and that's all you see. It looks like Stitch just took off the top part of his face. Perfect headshot and a pretty hilarious image. LILO was then informed she had to turn Stitch into a model citizen. It took a lot of work and patience, but it finally happened. Him and LILO are two peas in a pod, and it's a great story seeing him go from destructive alien to a family pet in his new ohana.
I just needed an insider's opinion before I okayed this spot for my pool.
Your pool?
Booyah!
The Emperor's New Groove. Boom, baby, was the iconic line from Disney's The Emperor's New Groove, released in 2000. David Spade voiced Kuzco, the Emperor, while John Candy voiced the role of Pacha, a kind and simple peasant who later befriends Kuzco. This film was different than other Disney films where nothing dark or scary happened, a completely different take on how Disney movies usually are. With it being comical and light, it was a great movie for the whole family. The Emperor does indeed get a new groove in the end. Starting out as a narcissistic young man, Pacha helps him to see the error of his ways. It is a great story that no matter how rich or powerful you may be, it is always wise to keep other people in mind and to be a little selfless. If any of you are familiar with the Beavis and Butthead cartoon, then one scene in particular will stand out if paused at the right time. It was the moment when Kuzco was at the dinner table just starting to turn into a llama. He raises his glass, and as he does so, his face becomes elongated and his nose becomes pointy. He definitely looks like a combination of the two delinquents.
Sorry, kid, can't help you.
Wait!
Hercules. Hercules, the son of Zeus, is one macho dude. When Hercules meets Meg for the first time after defeating the giant centaur, a true damsel in distress moment, it seems he's completely crazy for her. Pegasus nor Phil could stop him from approaching her, even though he needed to stay focused on the task at hand. After all, he needs to become a true hero. Hercules just couldn't resist those doe eyes and hourglass figure, though. Of course, it seems Meg is pretty intrigued with the godlike man himself.
So, did they give you a name along with all those rippling pectorals?
Hercules may be the son of Zeus, but even he got a little tongue-tied after she asked him that. If you pause the scene right when she flips him in the face with her wet hair, his eyes are closed and he seems to not even care what she's saying to him. It definitely looks as though he's giving her some real sass. Not how one would generally perceive someone so manly and macho. Apparently he thinks he's way above her. The scene has a completely different feeling between paused and unpaused.
Cinderella, I've warned you never to interrupt
But
while...
this just arrived from the palace.
From the palace?
Give it here. Let me have it. It's mine. Give that back.
I'll read it.
Cinderella. Disney's 1950s Cinderella is one of their most iconic films to date, and we always think of Cinderella as one of the classic Disney princesses. It is a fairy tale ending that leaves everyone satisfied when that glass slipper is delicately placed on her foot. Being a slave to an evil stepmother and stepsister is hard work. Luckily, for one night, Cinderella gets to take a break and get out and enjoy herself. Who could pass up riding in a pumpkin? Life's pretty grand when you can be dolled up by a fairy godmother, go to a lavish ball, and get to dance with Prince Charming. Nothing is wrong here, right? Well, things take on a whole different feeling if you pause the movie in one particular location. It's a scene where the Grand Duke and footmen of the palace are staring over the balcony at the prince kissing Cinderella's hand. Pause it the moment the Duke is behind the footmen. If you do so at the right spot, it appears there's some male-on-male intimacy taking place. Super awkward, and definitely not appropriate for young children. While the Duke is smiling, the footman does not appear to be having a good time.
How are you doing that?
It's a magic carpet.
It's lovely.
Aladdin. In Disney's 1992 Aladdin, our beloved street rat protagonist is one daring, cunning, and funny character. There's a lot to like about the guy. He does not have the average traits that other Disney princes have had and is more than just a handsome guy to gaze at. Take that, you cookie-cutter princes! Not to mention, apparently he can pull off some pretty incredible poses. There's one scene in particular where he's having a run-in with a palace guard where things become, well, fishy. Aladdin runs around the guard taking his belt off, thus causing his pants to fall down. The guard then uses a fish as a pair of pants to cover up. While Aladdin is running around, he moves his body in ways even a gymnast would find impossible. Or anyone for that matter. Pause it at just the right moment where it looks like he's doing the splits. It literally looks like he breaks every bone in his body to contort that way. There's no way anyone could do that. He does, however, look pretty smooth while doing so. It's probably one of the many reasons Princess Jasmine fell for him.
I am Merida, firstborn descendant of Clan Dunbrog.
Brave. Disney's 2012 Brave, featuring a headstrong, bow-wielding Scottish princess, is sure to bring joy to the entire family, most notably between mothers and daughters. In the beginning of the movie, Merida and her mother don't exactly see eye to eye on everything. Merida would much rather ride her horse, shoot her bow, or just gallivant around on her own. Her mother, the queen, wants her to be proper, sophisticated, and adhere to the old traditions. Eventually, certain circumstances force them to bond and put their differences aside. They then remember that the love between them is very strong and that it's one of the most important. If you pause one scene in particular, the princess may remind you of a character from a famous television series from the 60s. It's the scene where she comes back from her day of not having to be a princess. No expectations and anything can happen. She rides Angus through the forest, firing arrows at targets she's placed in the trees, and climbs the Crone's Tooth and drinks from the Fire Falls. When she returns, she dismounts her horse and asks him if he's hungry. He whips her hair with his tail, and if paused at the right moment, she looks like Cousin It from the Addams Family.
Sid's cameo in Toy Story 3. We all remember the horrible Sid from Pixar's Toy Story. When Woody and Buzz get stuck in a crane game, they're eventually won by Sid Phillips, the awful child who lives next door to Andy. Sid is distinguishable by his black skull t-shirt, his braces, and his very cruel nature. Obviously not the most social human being, his bedroom is a dirty cesspool of junk. Worst of all, Sid has been experimenting with his toys and those of his sister, ripping them apart and putting them back together in weird and disturbing ways, like the baby doll head on top of the mechanical spider or the fishing hook on top of a pair of Barbie legs. Fortunately, Woody and Buzz are able to escape before they're turned into an experiment themselves, but Sid still makes a return in the franchise, as a music-loving garbage man who takes Andy's toys to the dump while Woody tries to save them. You can tell it's him by his trademark Black Skull t-shirt. What do you think led Sid to this profession? Let us know your theories in the comments.
When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Mr. Incredible comic book in Finding Nemo. Pixar is known for stuffing their movies full of cameos and Easter eggs, sometimes from movies that haven't even been released yet. Some fans call these prediction eggs, and it's not uncommon for them to look through their old DVDs and Blu-rays to look for these years later. For example, check out Finding Nemo, released a year before The Incredibles. In the waiting room for the dentist's office, where the dentist is planning to give Nemo to the awful Darla, Pixar sure has a penchant for creating awful child characters, don't they? You can see a small boy reading a comic book. If you pause the movie and look closely, you can see that it's actually a Mr. Incredible comic, about the square-jawed, superpowered hero from the Pixar movie that would come out a year later. Have you noticed any other prediction eggs in Pixar movies lately? There might even be a few more on this list.
And he sticks the landing.
Sven the reindeer in Moana. Frozen is one of the most popular Disney films to come out in recent years, thanks to a catchy soundtrack and a bevy of colorful, likable characters. But people maybe don't give Sven the reindeer enough credit for making the movie so darn likable. Maybe that's why Disney decided to give Sven a cameo in their more recent picture, Moana. He appears right after Maui retrieves his magical fishhook from the cave of Tamatoa. The fishhook grants Maui the power to transform into whatever creature he desires. But being a little out of practice, Maui has trouble transforming into a giant hawk and ends up rotating through a variety of far less threatening creatures. If you pause the movie for a moment, you can even see him take on the shape of Sven the reindeer for a split second. As likable as Sven might be, he's probably not the right shape to take on the giant monster coconut crab that is Tamatoa.
Who's that beside her? Who is it?
Wow, you're one hot dancer, Benjamin Clawhauser.
Bootleg DVDs in Zootopia. When it was released in 2016, Zootopia impressed audiences with its satirization of modern life. The town of Zootopia was just like a modern metropolis, but instead of being populated by humans, it was populated by millions of animals, all of whom were slightly different but still essential parts of the animal society. And just like a human city, not every part of the economy was completely above board, legally speaking. In one scene, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde interrogate Duke Weaselton, a weasel known on the streets for selling bootleg DVDs. If you pause your Blu-ray for a quick moment, you can catch a quick glimpse of some of the movies for sale, all of which are animal-related parodies of actual Disney films, like Wreck-It Rhino, Pig Hero 6, or Meowana. What kind of animal do you think Walt Disney would be? Perhaps a dog named Woof Disney? Who could say for sure? Darla photo in Finding Dory. Just like Sid made a cameo in Toy Story 3 15 years after his appearance in the original Toy Story, the brace-faced Darla from Finding Nemo also makes a cameo in Finding Dory, 13 years after her first appearance. When Dory is stuck in her empty tank at the quarantine center, she anxiously swims around, revealing a photograph of a familiar face pasted to the wall behind her. That face is Darla's, and it's the same photograph that sat beside the tank in the dentist's office in the original Finding Nemo. Now, the quarantine tank is in California, whereas the dentist's office from the original was located in Sydney, Australia. How likely is it that there are friends or relatives of Darla in both locations? Let us know if you have any theories on the matter. We're dying to hear them. Pixar Memories in Inside Out. Pixar's Inside Out is a wonderful case study on the bittersweet nature of memory. We're blessed to have nice memories, but they also come with the knowledge that we can never recapture them, no matter how hard we try. This goes for the Pixar team, just as it does for Riley. And inside the various memory orbs in Riley's mind, there are images of all the stories that have appeared in Pixar movies past. One of those memories is the scene of Carl and Ellie's wedding from the opening scenes of Up. If you look closely and pause at just the right moment, you can also catch a glimpse of the Sunnyside Daycare Center's playground from Toy Story 3. For fans of Pixar who have grown up with these movies, it's a bittersweet experience to be reminded of our first time watching them. But thankfully, with movies, we can also plug in the Blu-ray and see it again. Candies from Sugar Rush in Frozen. Given that it's set in a Scandinavia-esque fantasy land, and that it sticks pretty closely to the classic Disney princess formula, you might think the makers of Frozen would have shied away from stocking their movie full of Easter egg moments, but that simply is not the case. The makers of Frozen found plenty of space to reference Disney movies from the past. One of the most obvious is a reference to the fictional Sugar Rush video game from Wreck-It Ralph. When Elsa turns 21 and invites dignitaries from across the land to a celebration at her palace, we can see a plate of candies on one of the tables. Those candies are the same kind that Ralph has to deal with on his adventures in the arcade. How do you think these movies connect? Did the makers of Sugar Rush in the Wreck-It Ralph universe design their candies based on traditional Arendelle recipes? You be the judge.
She replaced us. Come on.
No, she only replaced you.
She replaced all of us, didn't she?
Lotso Huggenbear in Up. Hey, we did say we would return to the idea of the prediction egg in Pixar movies. It takes a long time and a lot of hard work to make an animated movie, so the animators are often finished with their character designs years before a movie is completed. That's why Lotso Huggenbear, the menacing villain from Toy Story 3, can be seen in a single shot from Pixar's Up. As Carl lets his balloons off into the sky and flies his house away from the city, we see the balloons rising into the sky from out the window of a young girl's bedroom. And if you pause the film at just the right moment, you can see Lotso Huggenbear in her bedroom, sitting right beside her bed. Up was released a year before Toy Story 3, but perhaps that bear got sent to Sunnyside Daycare Center not long after Carl took to the skies.
Excuse me while I let out some air.
Han's poster in Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 was the first big thing to result from the sale of Marvel to Disney, and the first film to really merge their respective brands in an interesting way. Though comic books, including the Big Hero 6 series that the film is based on, are no stranger to Easter eggs and insider references, one of the more obvious hidden details of Big Hero 6 is the inclusion of wanted posters for Frozen's Prince Hans. For those not in the know, Prince Hans swept Princess Anna off her feet, but it was all a ploy as the dastardly Han sought to seize the throne of Arendelle. Still, it's a little weird that he's wanted when they also have a statue of the prince in San Fran, Tokyo. Perhaps he's become an international fugitive in the meantime. What do you think?
Let go of your brother!
No.
Emeryville road names in The Incredibles. As with every other Pixar movie, The Incredibles is chock full of references and Easter eggs, even if it is the only Pixar movie not to include a cameo from the Pizza Planet truck that made its debut in Toy Story. In addition to referencing other Pixar movies, the folks at Pixar like to reference aspects of their own origin, like the use of A113, a recurring number in Pixar movies that refers to a classroom at the California Institute of Arts where many Pixar animators learn the tools of the trade. In The Incredibles, a computer screen shows a map of various streets, ostensibly in the city where the Incredibles reside. But instead of referencing Gotham or Metropolis, those streets are pulled from a map of Emeryville, California, where the Pixar Animation Studio video is located. Well, there you have it. What paused Disney moment did you enjoy the best? Which one was the funniest? Are there any crazy Disney shots that we missed? Do any of these moments change your views of the Disney movies? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Screen Rant on YouTube so you can stay up to date with our awesome videos. And finally, the answer to our emoji challenge is... Thanks for watching.